BBC News. Ukraine has said it signed a memorandum of intent on a minerals deal with the United States. The economy minister said a final accord would include a reconstruction fund. US hopes to conclude the deal in February were derailed by the public row between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump at the White House. The Houthis in Yemen say a US attack on a fuel terminal on the Red Sea coast has killed nearly 40 people and injured many more. Television pictures from a Houthi-run broadcaster showed burning trucks and Red Crescent workers removing bodies from the scene. The Hamas-run civil defense agency in Gaza says 10 people were killed overnight by an Israeli strike near the southern city of Khan Yunis. A US senator says he's managed to meet Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongly deported to El Salvador by the Trump administration last month. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, again insisted that he would not be released from jail. The four candidates competing to become Canada's next Prime Minister have taken part in their second televised debate. The incumbent and front-runner, Mark Carney, came under repeated attack from his rivals. The Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is due to hold talks in Rome with the US Vice President. J.D. Vance, a Roman Catholic, is reported to be hoping to meet Pope Francis. A former Credit Suisse boss, Tidjane Thiam, has been confirmed as the main opposition candidate in Ivory Coast's presidential election. The Chinese authorities are tightening the rules for manufacturers of cars, offering features such as autonomous driving. Firms have been told not to exaggerate the role of such systems. A deadly crash last month raised concerns about the technology. BBC News.
Hello and thank you for that. Welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Andrew Peach and Luquessa Burek. In this half hour of the programme, we're bringing you stories from Syria, Italy and the US, and the commentary from that game. The Voice, Conor McNamara, is joining Isaac live.
He's the man of the morning. That is the guest to have.
He is. And just to preempt you, we've managed to access a couple of those text messages, so we'll be bringing you those in this half hour as well.
Now, it's nearly 4 months since the fall of the Assad regime. Syria has appointed a new transitional government despite a fragile security across the country. Syrians are experiencing political freedoms they've been deprived of for 5 decades. Some fear the new Islamist-led government might be putting social and religious freedoms at risk, though. Going to talk to our correspondent Lina Sinjab about this in a moment. First of all, here's her report.
بابا شوفي في واحد على الشباك ما بعرف مين هو.
This is a scene from the most popular Syrian soap opera during Ramadan, Al-Batal, the hero. The story reflects the reality of the past 14 years: war, bombing, displacement, corruption and killing. Director Laith Hajro is instructing actors from behind his monitor. He faced difficulties obtaining filming permits from the old regime, but says the new authorities have given him their full support.
I received all the support and facilitation from the people in charge of the media and the new government. But that doesn't mean anything in the long run. I am not optimistic at all about the coming period regarding what we are seeing or experiencing.
Recent violence in coastal cities saw more than 1,400 civilians killed, many of them Alawites, part of Assad's minority sect. The killings were allegedly carried out as revenge for attacks on Syrian security forces. The violence has also affected filming.
Unfortunately, the line between drama and life has started to blur to the point where our own events are repeated with our characters. Some actors in the series couldn't come to the filming because they were trapped in the mountains.
At Damascus University, students represent Syria's mixed and diverse society. Now a new mosque is being built on campus without notice and without building permission. Students like Zahra Majar don't think this is a priority.
We are not just Muslims in Syria. It is a diverse society with different sects. The priority for us is to learn music, theatre, how to film. It is more important than building a mosque, especially that we already have prayer rooms for people to perform religious duties.
There have been no new laws or rulings imposing restrictions on social life, but Syrians have seen several attempts to enforce Islamic rule, with some public institutions separating entry for men and women, and some men seen distributing flyers asking women to wear full-faced veils on public buses. And in Christian neighborhoods in Damascus, some cars were filmed driving through the streets with preachers advocating for Islam over loudspeakers. Locals are not happy, including Muslims. In the predominantly Christian neighborhood of Bab Sharqi in Damascus, several bars were shut down for serving alcohol. A few days later, under public pressure, they were allowed to open again, provided they obtain a license. The fear is that they will never be able to get them. In the heart of the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, the call for prayer has started. Damascus is known for its tolerant type of Islam, but many fear that among the new authorities there is a more Salafi background that could affect social freedoms. At this mosque, they are attacking Sufi worshippers and calling them infidels. I spoke to Imam Muhammad Ala ad-Din al-Sayyid and asked if he worries a more radical Islam will take over.
It is impossible. Our society will not accept it. We have lived in harmony with different sects for years, even during difficult times. The Quran says it clearly. No compulsion in religion.
Syrians have been through a lot over the past decades. While the majority live in poverty, they do enjoy religious and social freedoms. But some fear that these too are in the grip of a new repressive Islamic order.
That was Lena Sinjab, and Lena joins us now. Lena, is that feeling widespread across Syria that we just heard at the end of your report there? Is that the general feeling?
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking to. So Syria is a mixed society, and there is a big number of the society also who are Sunni Muslim, who are happy to see Islamic rule, who are happy to see a Sunni leader taking over. But even among the Sunni community, they don't want to see repressive Islamic orders. The minorities, they don't want to see repressive Islamic orders. And many of the secular society, which are big numbers in Syria, are worried that the social freedom or the social style of life is going to change.
So where's this all stemming from then?
There hasn't been, as I mentioned in the piece, there hasn't been any, a decision, a government decision to do so. It's all practices by people in power or people close to people in power who are, trying to enforce their own views. But also, as you hear in the piece, that many people feel that Syrian society have gone through a lot. They have now free to speak their mind. They will not accept these practices. The man, filmed in the streets shouting at these preachers in cars with loudspeakers. I saw the video. He was surrounded by many who were pushing these preachers out of the area. But again, Salafis are trying to infiltrate and impose their way of living. So the government has to step in if they are really serious about inclusion.
Lena, there is an article where you talk, it's online for those of you who want to read more. Syrians have more freedom after Assad, but could they soon lose it? Your description of Syria, going back to the 8th of December 2024, you were at the border hoping to get into the country. Just give us a sense of then and now.
Well, it's incredible the change in Syria. It's as if people. It's not only those who have been in prison were liberated. The whole country has been liberated. Liberated not only from a decade of war, liberated from 5 decades of Assad dynasty. People are speaking, are talking, are participating. They have a say in their country. They have a say in their future. But the problem is the way some experts see it is that the way al-Shara's government is moving forward it doesn't show that they are willing to have real inclusion and sharing of power, sharing of experiences, of expertise. They're so far working with people who are part of their own group. The main positions in the government are from Islamist background, are from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the group that came with Shara and liberated Damascus. And these are things that are worrying. There are signs that there is no path for real democracy in Syria. And this is what people are worried about. Yet other people think that, the Syrians will not accept it, the society will not accept it, and it will not work unless they really include everyone in the country.
Yeah, okay, we'll see how that goes. But like I said, have a look at Lena's article on the website. Lena, thank you.
Four people have died after a mountain cable car cabin plunged to the ground on Thursday near Naples in southern Italy. Another person extremely seriously injured. Prosecutors say they've launched an investigation as officials confirm the victims were 3 passengers and the driver of the cable car. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes is our correspondent in Rome. What more do we know about what happened, Rupert?
Well, the investigation is just getting underway, and it's going to be very difficult for the investigators to gather evidence because the site of the accident is high up on a mountainside in thick forest. The cable car that plunged to the ground is in the shattered remains of it are in the forest there. But obviously the focus is going to be on how did this cable snap? The cable carrying the cars up the mountain, a very thick cable, which apparently had been inspected and passed all its inspection just 2 weeks ago, snapped, and then the backup safety system that was supposed to put a brake on the cable if something like this happened also failed, and the cable car plunged to the ground. Really horrific accident. 4 people killed at the site, someone else in hospital in critical condition, and many, many questions to be answered by the investigation as to how this could have happened.
And a lot of people, of course, using these kind of things because it's a holiday period in Italy and in so many parts of the world.
Yeah, and cable cars, it has to be said, Italy is a very mountainous country, and there are many beautiful parts of this country that people like to visit, and there are cable cars all over the place here. So it's a very normal thing. If you talk to local people here, they say it's extremely normal to take cable cars all the time. And not just for tourists, but for locals as well. But this is not the first time this had happened. This was an old system. It's nearly 75 years old. But another system in the north of Italy failed 4 years ago, killing 14 people. And, I'm not an expert on this, but it does, the immediate question, obviously, is how can 2 such incidents have happened in such a short space of time? And is there an issue with safety inspections? And is there an issue with maintenance, the age of the cables, the age of the systems, the fact that there are so many systems like this in Italy?
Rupert, thank you very much indeed for that. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes live with us from Rome on Newsday.
And very quickly, just to bring you a couple of those text messages. President Donald Trump is more of a businessman than a politician. He's investing more time and effort in the Ukrainian mineral deal than the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Ayaku Wilson, thank you very much for that. And also, the political career of Benjamin Netanyahu is hinged on the continuation of the war in Gaza. To achieve this, he will make sure that his terms for ending the war are not acceptable to Hamas. And that came in, I've lost your name, but thank you for that. All right, let me put this question to you. Some know it as the Old Man River. The French knew it as the Saint Louis. It's also called the Big Muddy. Native Americans knew it as the Mississippi. You know it as the Mississippi. It now has a new title. endangered. This is part of a new report that has come out listing the Mississippi River. It's right up there at the top. Let's find out why. I spoke to Eileen Shader from the American Rivers National Floodplain Restoration Program, and I began by asking her why the river is now at risk and what it means.
For the Mississippi River, the threat that we're facing this year is the dramatic changes to our natural disaster management. So at this point in time, our administration is calling for dramatic changes like eliminating the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is already experiencing hundreds of layoffs, elimination of critical programs, and this is a call to Americans to weigh in and let the administration know how important this agency is.
Okay, I want to try and build a picture for our listeners. I wonder if you could please describe the life cycle. What goes on along the Mississippi River?
Yeah, the Mississippi River flows 2,350 miles through 10 states. There's nearly 20 million people that rely on it as their source of water. The entire Mississippi River Basin includes all or parts of 31 states and is home to 70 million people. So it covers a huge portion of the United States. It has a vibrant shipping industry worth approximately $400 billion annually. Our outdoor recreation economy supports 400,000 jobs, generates $25 billion annually, and it's a globally important flyway and ecosystem.
So if FEMA is not reinstated or some sort of funding and support, what exactly is at risk? What will happen?
The threat is that there are thousands of communities throughout this watershed and along the Mississippi River that are at risk of flooding, that experience flooding on a regular basis, as well as other natural disasters. And with floods come all sorts of environmental issues, contaminated water, impacts to the habitat and natural areas, and the consequences of not having governmental support when those floods happen means that we have more people at risk. Our communities can't recover after these events and can lead to all sorts of consequences for people and the economy. Part of the role in the United States for an agency like FEMA is helping to encourage communities to make sure we're developing our floodplains wisely and that we're not putting these contaminants and potential contaminants in the floodplain. In the United States, the management of our floodplains is really shared between the local communities, the states, and the federal government. So one of the issues that's at stake right now is what is the appropriate role of the federal government? Should they be providing guidance and requirements on the states or local communities on how they manage their floodplain? And in our opinion, the federal government should be playing a supporting role to the states. Rivers don't know boundaries. So floods, especially catastrophic floods, are a federal issue. We need a strong federal government that's going to help to send resources to those communities and can help guide and encourage and incentivize and in some cases regulate to make sure we are making wise decisions about how that money's spent.
And on the wildlife side of things, is there anything particularly unique about the Mississippi when it comes to ecosystems that is now at threat or could be at threat?
Yeah, absolutely. The Mississippi is a globally significant river, home to many rare, threatened, endangered species, and much of the river has been altered in the past. We have significant areas of the river that have been levied, have been cut off from their floodplain, and when floodplain-dependent species, fish, waterfowl, don't have access to the floodplain, then they don't have the appropriate habitat for breeding, for thriving. So we tend to then see those species decline.
What are your thoughts as to what's going to happen next?
Many of our states and our decision makers in Congress fully recognize the importance of having a strong FEMA and federal response when it comes to natural disasters. We've heard from the Trump administration that they're calls to abolish the agency entirely. We're hoping that doesn't happen. That would require some act of Congress. And so if there's a move to do that, then we'll have some strong congressional members that will stand up and defend the agency.
And there we go. You learn new things every day. Eileen Shader there telling us about the endangered Mississippi River. I wonder if we can just go to Paris very quickly, because Marco Rubio is speaking. Do we have sound on this? I can see him speaking. Let's just have a quick listen.
That are equally, if not more important in some ways, to the United States.
Secretary of State, is this process involving the Europeans to be the process going forward now for Ukraine talks? And who from the US team will be attending talks in London next week?
Well, it depends what the talks will be about next week. As I said, if it's just going to be a meeting to have another meeting, we'll figure that out whether it'll happen. My hoping is that it's a meeting where we're going to get more specificity. So we're going to work through that. We don't even have a date set. It'll be early next week. Obviously, there's a holiday weekend, so people have to move around and get to their places and get back. We'll fit, but having another meeting somewhere in Europe is not going to be a problem, and we can make that happen and have the right people there. I'm willing to come myself if the meeting is going to be productive. But I can. What was the first part of your question again?
And is this going to be the process going forward?
Well, look, we've always worked through the. I mean, we've talked to our allies consistently. I myself have had multiple engagements with not the Germans, the French, the Brits, but also the Italians have been at some of these meetings as well in the past. So we've had these conversations with them before. So they offered to host us here today or yesterday, and I think they were very helpful, very constructive. We'd like them to remain engaged. I think they can help us. I think the UK and France and Germany can help us move the ball on this and get this closer to a resolution. I thought they were very helpful and constructive with their ideas. So we welcome their input. We welcome their involvement. We think it's important. There are probably elements of this as well. I always remind everybody that part of the sanctions against Russia, many of them, are European sanctions that we can't lift if that's ever to be part of a deal. So they're going to have to be involved no matter what. It's their continent. This is happening on the continent of Europe. And so obviously European powers will care deeply about what happens. So they have a stake in this, and we recognize it. And but in the end, I think we all want the same thing. I think from the U.S. perspective, we've spent 3 years, billions of dollars, supporting the Ukrainian side. But now we've reached a point where we have other things we have to focus on. We're prepared to be engaged in this as long as it takes, but not indefinitely, not without progress. If this is not possible, we're going to need to move on. I think the president feels strongly that we've dedicated we've done more in 80 days than Biden ever did to bring this war to an end. So we've dedicated almost the entirety of the president's first 100 days in office at the highest levels possible to trying to achieve a peace here. And if it's going to happen, we want to help. But if it's not going to happen, we need to know now, because we have other things we have to deal with.
OK. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, there at the airport. He has been part of that Paris summit on Ukraine. Monsieur Macron managed to bring the US, the Ukrainians and EU leaders around one table. He is heading to London this weekend. So some lines there on we need to determine whether it's possible to end the war in Ukraine.
This is Newsday from the BBC. Rashid is listening to us in Sierra Leone. Here's his take on last night's football. I love this. This comeback from Manchester United is the best in the club's history. I was like, wow. Here's Isaac.
I mean, it was extraordinary. They're into the semi-final of the Europa League after producing what was a stunning comeback to beat Lyon 7-6 over 2 legs. It was pretty much a game of comebacks, really. United went 2-0 up. Then Lyon pulled it back to 2-2, forcing extra time. Lyon lost Corentin Tolisso, who was sent off for 2 bookable offences, and then managed to score 2 in extra time to make it 4-2. Bruno Fernandes then pulled one back for United. And, well, me telling you what happened next wouldn't do it justice.
There's only a minute to go. Casemiro to Kobe Mainoo. Chance to shoot! Over 5 minutes of stoppages. Harry Maguire! Oh my word! Harry Maguire's header makes it 7-6 to Manchester United. Oh my God!
the words of many Manchester United fans after that match. Joining me on the line is a man whose voice you heard there, Conor McNamara. Conor, what a night. Where do you think this ranks in the history of bonkers nights at Old Trafford?
Yeah, good morning to you. Look, I think it's right up there, particularly because some of Manchester United's greatest evenings have actually been away from Old Trafford, sometimes on neutral venues, but on their own pitch. This had it all. You know, it was a dramatic cocktail of the good. There was plenty of the bad in there too, on a night that Manchester United season all boiled down to one game, and had they lost, the campaign would have been over. No trophies, no qualification for Europe next season. The criticism, the scrutiny of Ruben Amorim would have reached new crescendos, but in that cauldron atmosphere of pressure, they somehow got the job done. And I think it just reminds the enormous fan base of Manchester United what the good times felt like. And it was far from perfect. Manchester United did it the hard way, but it was one of those nights where nothing mattered but the results. It didn't matter that they conceded 6 times over the course of the tie. It didn't matter that they conceded 2 of those goals playing against 10 men in extra time. It didn't matter that Kobbie Mainoo and Harry Maguire had to be deployed as makeshift strikers, because they both scored. So none of it mattered. You know, the redemptive quality of football, where history is rewritten by the winners all the time.
We're often reminded, Conor, about a certain Sir Alex Ferguson, how his job was saved in an FA Cup tie by Mark Robbins, who scored a goal in the against Nottingham Forest. They went on to win that FA Cup in 1990. Do you reckon Harry Maguire might be a pub quiz answer in 20 years' time for perhaps saving Ruben Amorim? Not to say that his job was on the line here.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's relatively new in the door, he's been there for 5 months, he doesn't take all the burden for the problems that Manchester United have. But there's no doubt it's his job to try and fight their way out of it now. And it's twofold for him. Okay, first of all, in the here and the now, this season, right now, this is evidence that Ruben Amorim's methods can have an effect, that he can get the players to connect, because you look at his league results, they've actually been worse than his predecessor, Eric Ten Hag. Their league position is woeful. So Ruben Amorim needed to show that he can get a tune out of this team. But arguably, beyond that, the real importance of last night's drama is the knock-on effect for next season. Because if Manchester United win the Europa League, they would gain automatic qualification for the Champions League next season. That would get them back amongst the elite clubs. And then you go into the financial implications, the fortunes that would come with that. Recruitment of new players would be so much easier if Manchester United are back in the Champions League. So it's not too far a stretch to say that last night's drama can save this season for Manchester United, and arguably can save next season too.
And they've got a tough tie against Athletic Bilbao. Bilbao is going to be hosting the final of this competition. How do you think they will face up against United?
Yeah, Bilbao, who'd comfortable second leg victory over Rangers after what had been a very tense first leg. 0-0 had finished despite the Spanish team dominating that game and missing a penalty, feeling they should have had it wrapped up by that stage. Bilbao will feel this is their year because, you know, as you say, you go to Bilbao now, already the posters are up all over town advertising that they are hosting the Europa League this season, Europa League final. For Manchester United fans, it sets up, I guess, the tantalising prospect of 2 trips to northern Spain, because they will go for one of those legs of the semi-final, and if they can win that semi, they would go back again for the final. So Manchester United fans will be enjoying the idea of going for a few tapas in Spain over the next month or so.
Yeah, they certainly will. Conor, I really appreciate you for joining us. That's Conor McNamara there. What a weekend. Have a good weekend.
That's it from Newsday. Thank you for listening.